Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Robin.
Hello, Bante.
Sorry I got a little bit late there.
That's okay.
So, tonight we have a quote from the Anguttara Nikaya. Today, broadcasting live from Stony Creek in Connecticut, August 24th, 2015. Robin, would you mind reading the quote?
Oh, sure. Where there is discontent, this woe may be looked for. Whenever, I apologize, I have something weird on my screen. I'm sorry, one moment.
No, that was it.
No, it's blocking part of it.
Let
me see. Oh, strange things happen. I'm sorry about that. Gotta love the live broadcast. When there is discontent, this woe may be looked for. Wherever one goes, stands, sits, or lies, one has no happiness or pleasure. Whether one has gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, to a lonely place, to an open space, or among the monks, one finds no happiness or pleasure. But when there is contentment, this good may be looked for. Whether one goes, stands, sits, or lies, whether one has gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, to a lonely place, or to an open space, or among the monks, one finds happiness and pleasure.
It's funny, that's not quite what the Pali says. He takes some liberties with his translations here. Give me a second. This is a bit of a specific quote. As near as I can tell here, it's between Sariputta and Samandakani. Samandakani. Let's see what we know about Samandakani. I'm not going to go searching for who Samandakani was, but Samandakani was a recluse, a non-Buddhist religious person, you might say. And this Samandakani asks Sariputta about in Buddhism, in the Dhamma Vinaya of Buddhism, what is happiness and what is suffering? What in Buddhism is happiness and what in Buddhism is suffering? So that's an interesting question. No? Question many people have when they hear the Buddha talking about happiness and suffering. They hear Buddhists talking about happiness and suffering. And the word he uses is not contentment. The word he uses is a curious word. It's abhirati, which the dictionary does say can be translated as contentment, but that's not exactly what it means. It's not contentment in general. It's with something. Rati is enjoyment, and abhi is great or high. But the meaning could be contentment with something, when you are happy with something or you appreciate something. So the meaning here, I'm pretty sure, has to be not contentment, but when one is content with Buddhism, content with the meditation, and content with the practice, content with one's practice. Because we have a word for neutral contentment, like if someone in general is unclinging or unwanting, not wanting of for anything. It's called santuti. It means, tuti means happiness, and san means like already or without or sang means of itself, kind of thing, self-happy sort of. But santuti means real contentment, when you're already happy, kind of thing, or you're happy by yourself, happy without getting anything, meaning being contentment. Abhirati, pretty sure means one is content. The meaning here is one is content with the practice. So he's kind of adapted it and giving, I think, a bit of the wrong impression of the quote. Because the question is about, in Buddhism, what is it? How does one, how do you define, or how do you differentiate a person who is happy, or how do you find happiness? Because how do you find happiness in Buddhism? And Sariputta says, in this Dhamma Vinaya, abhirati sukha, anabhiratiya, no, anabhirati ko avaso imasming Dhamma Vinaya dukkha, abhirati sukha. So in this Dhamma Vinaya, being discontent, or it's not even discontent, it's being displeased. It's really displeased with the practice. That's suffering. And being pleased, this is happiness. Just looking at the commentaries, but it doesn't look like there is a commentary to the sutta. Mm-hmm. Satisfaction, Bhikkhu Bodhi says, or enjoyment. He says, when there is enjoyment. So that's the meaning. It isn't contentment. It's misleading to say that. But enjoyment means when one, it's not that one is pleased in the sense of having attachment to it, partiality to it. It's when one is, and this is why he uses the word content, because that's the sense here, when one is happy to be doing the practice, basically, or happy to be a monk is more to the point. Not more to the point, actually. The practice, whether it be a lay person or a monastic. Another good question is, in the Anguttara Nikaya, why is this in the Book of Tens? So what is the... Yeah. So there are 10 ways in which one who is discontent, if you're practicing meditation, but you're not happy to be practicing it, maybe you're bored with it, or you're fed up with it. If you can't find reason, and if you can't find inspiration as to why you should be practicing, then you find suffering in 10 ways. And so these 10 are: one, where is it? One, walking. Walking doesn't find happiness or comfort. Standing, sitting, lying, in the village, in the forest. So this is a neat thing that the Buddha does is point out that it doesn't matter. He does this in different places because people were often critical of the fact that the Buddha allowed monks to live in the villages, that they should really live in the forest, and a monk should really have to live in the forest. And the Buddha was clear that that's not the case. I mean, he didn't. I mean, the fact that I'm living in the city, but that's not what I meant actually. But it's important to point out because otherwise we think, oh, I can't live because I'm not in the forest. I can't do this because I'm not living in the forest. In order to practice Buddhism, one has to live in the forest. It's an important point that we have to bring up. That no, you don't. No, it has nothing to do with that. You're not. If you're living in the forest and you're dissatisfied, and that's what the Buddha is doing here. It's an important point, whether in the village or in the forest, whether at the foot of a tree, in an empty hut, in the open air, whether or even amongst the bhikkhus, one does not find happiness or comfort. When there is dissatisfaction, this suffering is to be expected. But on the other hand, when there is enjoyment, when one is happy to be doing what one is doing, right, all the various aspects of the holy life, living in the forest is pleasant, living in a village is pleasant. Another thing is how difficult it is to be pleased or to appreciate the forest, right? A lot of people, when they go off into solitude, when they're living under a tree or in an empty hut, they are unhappy. They become bored. They become restless. They need to go back to society. Need to go back to their enjoyment of sensual pleasures. Or when they're amongst monks, they feel dissatisfied because the monks are boring and unentertaining, for example. So it's an interesting teaching. I mean, this isn't the Buddha. This is Sariputta who's saying all of this. But we should take it, Sariputta is not some ordinary person, not even an ordinary enlightened being. He's number two to the Buddha in our teachings, in our tradition. Um, but it's an interesting teaching. There's one place where the Buddha says that it's better to do the right thing, discontent, than to just follow what makes you content. I mean, the word isn't content, what you enjoy, right? They say do what you love. Well, what if what you love involves pulling the wings off of grasshoppers or torturing small children or, no? No, doing what you love is, we have this funny saying in English, which some of you may have heard if you happen to be familiar with the English, if you know anything about the English language, those of you who happen to be able to speak English, we have this funny saying, follow your heart. It's an interesting saying. In Thai, they have an interesting saying as well, follow your heart. No, they don't actually say follow your heart, they say tam chai. But the translation literally would be follow your heart. See, the funny thing is, in English, it's a good thing. And what you may not be aware of is in Thai, it's actually considered a criticism. Someone who follows their heart is not considered to be noble or commendable. Someone who follows their heart is someone who is spoiled. In Thai, this is the sense. Someone who is undisciplined. Tam chai. Tam chai talot. Tam chai talot could mean you're either just following your whim all the time, or it means I am always following your whim. Tam jai talat could mean that I have to always follow your heart, your decisions. But if oneself tam jai talat, it means you're always just following your whims. It's a criticism. I tell this to the Thai people that, tam jai is a good thing in English. We consider it to be a good thing when you follow your heart. It's a bit ridiculous, It's one of those easily debunked motivational teachings. Follow your heart. And it's one of the profound aspects of Buddhism is your heart can be wrong. Your gut, your intuition can be wrong. I mean, that's kind of a scientific principle, right? You don't follow your heart in science. You don't follow your gut. You assume that your gut could be, listening to the pizza that you ate last night, or no, your gut can be wrong. Your heart can be wrong. Because what is the heart? It's made up of physical and mental states. It can be totally based on lies and misunderstandings. So, just because you don't want to do something doesn't mean it's not worth doing. But I think there's some qualifier that has to be made there. We do have the ability to reason, and we do have the ability to see clearly. So it's not that you have to always be questioning, because eventually that becomes false in itself. Well, I know this, but do I really know this? No, I mean, there is a sense that you can truly know something, and it's actually pretty easy. For example, I know that I'm seeing right now. That is without question the truth. I don't know what I'm seeing. I don't know whether I'm actually seeing this screen and this web camera and this microphone. It might just be my brain. I might be in the matrix and I'm hooked up to this machine that's giving me the stimulus, or any number of highly implausible scenarios could be true. But I do know without a doubt that there is seeing and there is hearing. At times there is seeing, there is hearing. So these truths are certain. But our judgments of things as being good, as being bad, these are potentially wrong. Our judgment of things. And in fact, in the end, it turns out that any judgment whatsoever in the sense of liking or disliking something is misguided, because there's no benefit that comes from liking or disliking. In the end, there's a realization that those two emotive states don't help us at all. So what I was saying is, the Buddha actually says, better to be discontent and do the right thing. So if you practice meditation and it's unpleasant, it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. If you practice meditation and it's difficult, certainly still doesn't mean it's not worth doing. Unpleasant also doesn't mean it's not worth doing. What it should be is it should be liberating. It's unpleasant to have to sit through physical pain. But in fact, you could say that sitting through it isn't the unpleasant thing. The unpleasantness doesn't come from the practice itself. And so it's not that you should keep doing something if that thing is in and of itself hurting you, because the meditation practice doesn't hurt you. It doesn't hurt you to sit through pain, for example. What truly hurts you, I mean, in the truest sense, is your own reactions. Now, that's the problem, is when you do when you attempt to be objective, you will suffer, not because of the act of being objective, but you will suffer because of your mind's reactions and your mind's inability to accept certain phenomena. Like, normally we're subjective, we're non-objective, But that doesn't make us suffer because we avoid that which we don't like, right? We run away from it. And by running away from it, we avoid the potential suffering. So by being objective, we stick with that which we dislike, but the disliking still comes up in the beginning anyway. I mean, we're not when we're truly objective, but when we make an attempt or when we undertake the practice of trying to become objective, it can be quite displeasing. Hmm? And so that's what Sariputta is referring to here. And you don't want to get the sense that Sariputta is saying that you should stop practicing because you're discontent. But that's the point, is once you're doing something to try and see the truth, how do you find happiness in it? Or how do you succeed in it? The only, you're doing the right thing, you're taking the practice, but you still are worthy of criticism because you haven't found happiness in it. So if the meditation is not bringing you happiness, and this is what we could say of vipassana meditation, insight meditation, meditation based on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, if it's not bringing you happiness, what you have to see, and the claim that has to be made, the claim that we would make, is that it's your own fault if you're not happy. So meditation, we say it's not pleasant all the time, but the meditation itself is not to blame. You are to blame. We are to blame for the fact that the meditation brings us suffering. It's because we are still reacting to those things that we should be objective about, that we're trying to be objective about. And once we're truly objective, we find peace. We are free from that suffering. So we come to be, you can say, content with what we're doing. We're able to be content no matter what we're doing, standing, walking, sitting, lying, when we're alone, when we're together, when we're in the village or in the forest, etc. But it's inspirational, this idea of finding contentment. Contentment, and but the meaning is here contentment with the practice, contentment with the holy life, if we want to use a common phrase. So the spiritual life. Spiritual life is something that's hard to be content with. Truly spiritual life, not the sort of, but new agey, I don't know whether it's wrong to use that word, but this kind of spiritual life where you just enjoy everything and live it's kind of a hedonistic spiritual life is a common thing. It's not what it's meant here. People think, well, my spiritual life is lots of, I listen to music, I dance, I'm spiritual. No, this isn't what we mean by spiritual life. The true spiritual life, a lot of people look at it and kind of think it's not very much fun. But true spiritual life is simply being able to be alone, being able to be quiet, not requiring anything to make you happy. True spiritual existence. It's hard. It's hard to find that contentment. It's hard to be content being alone, not needing anything, not having to jump up and make a sandwich or have a drink of, I don't know, have a drink. Or let's turn on the music, or turn on the television. It's difficult not to do that. So that's the quote for tonight. And so I think he's missing, he's okay with the translation, but he's missing an important part here that I think is a bit misleading. It's not contentment, which is, it's also a very good teaching, but that's not where this teaching actually means something a bit different. It's also not the words of the Buddha, but that's nitpicking because Sariputta is right up there anyway. Okay, anyway, shall we do some questions?
Sometimes it's harder for me to meditate than others. Should not each be easier each time I do it?
No, I mean, you have to look more at the macro level and the micro level. Like if you look at the stock market, I think there was the stock market was in the news today, right? The stock market goes up and down like this. If you look at it, you say, is the stock market going up? Well, if you look at it in one moment, It goes up and then it goes down, goes up and then it goes down, or so on like that. And it's hard to say, but over time, you see it goes up or it goes down, right? There's a trend. And that's that kind of that the analogy is that in meditation practice it should be similar. And that's an important point, because otherwise you become discouraged. Why is this practice not as good as the last practice? Why is this day not as good as the last day? There are so many factors that contribute to that. I mean, what were you doing today? And furthermore, what is contributing to this day? Sometimes things we did a week ago come back only to haunt us today, right? Not everything is immediate results. So you're going to have ups and downs. Your body is going to change. Maybe your body is giving you problems and it's making your brain pump out different kinds of chemicals than it pumped out yesterday. Maybe your food is impacting your practice, or food that you ate yesterday or even a week ago potentially is now coming to upset the balance. I mean, many different things. It could even be maybe the stars are aligned in such a way today that cosmic energy, I don't know, I mean, it's probably far-fetched, but they say that, some people do believe that astrology, the stars, the tides, right? Some people say that the months, right? There's the months cycle and the full moon. They say something about how on the full moon there's more crime. Is this right? There are statistics that show, and whether that has anything to do with the full moon itself, or I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just seeing the full moon, or maybe it's having a full moon to do the evil deeds by, but it could also be the tides and the gravity, for example. The point being, any number of things, realistic. Some probably have nothing, are not non-factors, but there are definitely many factors to do with how you feel right now. That's the micro level. You have to be more patient and have more of a macro look, which is also difficult because it's you. And you know how you feel right now, but do you really remember how you felt a year ago? I mean, can you really compare how you are now to how you are a year ago? Often it's much easier to let your teacher or your friends be the judge. And that often works with friends, for example. They'll say how you've changed. They'll say, gee, you seem like quite a different person. You seem much more quiet, much more calm, much more content. This is what meditators often hear. This process is sped up accelerated by intensive practice. So people who have finished a meditation course, if they did a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then at the end of the course you should see a real difference. You'll see a difference on two levels. One is a temporary level. You've gained concentration, which is only temporary. And so you'll feel more peaceful. You'll go back to the world and you'll look at things quite differently. Sometimes you find it difficult to fit back into the world because your level of concentration is so high that everything seems so, you're kind of disconnected from it. That's from any meditation. That has nothing to do with insight. It's a benefit that comes from being focused. You might also feel at the end of the course kind of unable to handle the world because you've become sensitive. You've opened yourself up to receive stimuli without protecting yourself, without preparing yourself. And so when strong, because everything is so refined when you're in a meditation center, but when you leave, there's such jarring experiences. But that's on the one level that has to do with the temporary states. With the real benefits, so when you leave the center, is that over time, like when you've done a meditation course, you'll see that you're able to be more objective about things. You'll see that you're no longer reacting immediately when someone attacks you. You no longer immediately react with anger. When you experience something unpleasant, you no longer immediately need for it to leave. When you experience something pleasant, you no longer need to immediately chase after it. You find that you're more able to be at peace and centered in yourself. But that's much more noticeable. I mean, the changes in general are much more noticeable through intensive practice. So if you're just doing daily practice, you have to be realistic, the benefits to expect. And again, as I said, looking for benefits can be detrimental in itself. If you're of the habit to look and see and question whether you've actually gained anything from the practice, that in and of itself is going to hinder your practice, which I think sounds a bit like a cop out, kind of leading people to think, what is this? Is this just a fake? You're telling people not to expect benefits from the practice. It's kind of just a means of hooking people into something out of blind faith. But no, that's not the case. Because we trick ourselves into doubting. The benefit that you should and can and should see for yourself is right here and right now. Every moment you should feel, you should clearly experience a clarity of mind, an untying of knots. It should feel like you've got this knot and you've just solved the puzzle. Just every moment you're fixing something, like something is crooked and you fix it, or there's some stickiness, something you dropped some soda or something sugary, and there's a sticky mess, and then you take some water and the sugar dissolves, and it should feel like a dissolving, suddenly freedom, no longer jumbled, no longer tangled, no longer messed up. You should feel that every moment when you're mindful, when you truly get the practice, just for a moment you'll feel a bit better, like you've just done something right, and that's undeniable, unquestionable, that you just did something right. And then it's gone. That was one moment. So then you have to do it again. And when you are able to do that repeatedly, this is what leads one to become enlightened. But that's where the real benefit lies. It changes you, and it sets you on the course to build up positive habits. So that's what we're looking for. That's what you should be able to see. If you find that, try to convince yourself. Try to show yourself. Remind yourself. Look, I can see it's working. Forget about how I'm changing as a person. How are you going to see that? First of all, it's up and down all the time. The changes are going to come slow but steady. And second of all, even when the changes do come, well, you should be able to have people will say to you, they notice a difference. You yourself should be able to remark that you feel stronger. You should notice that you're able to deal with things better. But you have to be careful not to dwell on that, and not to live for good experiences. Oh, I was so happy there, that means I'm progressing. Or, oh, today I was depressed, that means this meditation is useless. No, it doesn't. It just means you have the potential still to get depressed from time to time. It'll get better. Eventually that will go away. It will recede.
When doing walking meditation, do I pay the same attention to thoughts and feelings that I would during sitting meditation? For instance, feeling wobbly and unbalanced?
In walking, we do tend to make allowance for minor disturbances, meaning you can just ignore them and come back to walking, because it's more complicated it's more difficult or disruptive to stop walking and acknowledge. You're in the middle of walking. If something is a little bit disruptive, you can just bring your attention back to the feet and keep going. If it's a lot disruptive, like it's actually disruptive of your practice, like here I'm wobbling every step and I feel maybe unbalanced, then you can stop and acknowledge the feeling. If it's a general feeling of unbalance, of poor balance, but feeling unbalanced and wobbly, more you would focus on something, because you'd have to focus on something that would last when you actually stop, because you don't want to be noting and moving as well, unless you're actually noting the movement. So if you just feel unbalanced, you can just ignore it and continue on. But if you feel generally unstable, then you would acknowledge it. But to thoughts is the same. If you have a stray thought, you can just ignore it and come back to the foot. But if it's a persistent thought where you're actually have something on your mind, then you should stop and say thinking, or liking, disliking as appropriate.
What should I do at times when I feel I lack the conviction to practice.
Think about the Buddha. It's supposed to be a good one. Think about death, I suppose. Think about the fact that the future is uncertain, but death is certain. You're going to have to eventually come to terms with who you are, and the question is, are you prepared for that coming to terms? Are you prepared for death? Have you lived your life as best, in the best possible way? Being around other meditators, using internet meditation communities to bolster your practice. That's a joke, but no, not really. I mean, as you can see, this is helping us, right?
Yes.
This community is a easy way. Whoa, we've got a huge list tonight. What you may not have noticed, if you didn't notice yet, if you reload the page, if you've got a check mark beside your username, I think you can now click on your checkbox, and it may turn into a heart. Which is, I mean, you can do it on the Android app already. I just did it and it didn't work. But I've already got a heart beside one of them. Let's see. No. I think it only works. It doesn't work now because I waited too long. There, Mason did it.
It just worked on a PC.
Robin did it. Yeah, I can't do it anymore because my it's too old. It has to be within the past hour. If you've finished within the past hour, you can click on your checkbox and put a heart there, which means you're sending metta. Now there, everyone's doing it. This is new. This just came into effect tonight, so
Very
now it
nice.
works.
Didn't you have it before where if you long pressed on the start button, it
That's
turned
in the
into a heart?
Android app. It doesn't work on the website.
Oh, okay.
Can't long press on the start menu here, I don't think.
Oh, I don't know. I almost always use the Android app other than when I'm sitting here. So
No, there's no long press for
okay.
JavaScript. You could implement one, but
Dedicated Android user. Are members of the Noble Sangha, Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arhat alive today? If yes, how common are they? Tens, hundreds, thousands?
how do you judge whether someone is a Sotapanna? I don't know if it's proper to answer this question, because what would it mean if I said yes, there are hundreds and thousands? What would that be saying about me in a way that I can't talk about myself, for example? You know? I don't think that's a question that can easily that can, by a monk, be answered. We can say, I mean, skirting around it, we say that the path is open. You want to find out if there are Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, Arahat. You do it look for yourself, practice for yourself. Take the time to do a meditation course in a place that you trust and find reasonable, and see how far you can get. That's more important than whether there are hundreds or thousands of these sorts of people. How would you know? How would you know whether someone else was? You know, they don't work. They don't. There's not a. They don't tattoo on their forehead. It's not quite like that. You can get a sense of the differences between people. You know, you can get a sense of whether someone is truly. But you know, it's hard to get that sense if you haven't gained spiritual benefit yourself. How could you get that sense? It's easy to get the wrong sense. It's easy to be misled. And it's easy to get a sense, but it's also easy to be misled with that sense. I mean, Sariputta, there's a story of Sariputta sitting, teaching a monk how to meditate. Then while he's teaching him, the monk becomes an arahat. And Sariputta keeps teaching him, keeps trying to explain to him, thinking, not realizing that he's become an arahant. I mean, how would Sariputta know? The Buddha knew. The Buddha knows, and the Buddha looks at this and he finds it remarkable in this sort of way. Any more questions?
Yes. Does being content with your discontent make one content?
That's Ali. I saw him. Ali, are you still here? Ali's a good friend from Winnipeg, and he has a YouTube channel, shameless plug, meditation in Persian. So if you know, and you know what Persian is Iranian. So he does meditation videos for people using the Persian language for Iranian people, which is, awesome and unique. Ali, feel free to put the link in the chat if you'd like. If not, you don't have to, but I think it's worth seeing. I helped him do his first couple of videos. So, a good friend from Winnipeg, he's visited me here in Stony Creek. And I haven't answered his question yet. Being content with your discontent make one content. I don't think it's the goal to be content with your discontent. Being content with something, it's slippery because we're not actually talking about ultimate reality when we say these things. Being content with your discontent is slippery. What exactly is useful is seeing your discontent objectively. This is the language we have to use. Seeing it objectively. People always go the next step. When you start to explain meditation as seeing things objectively, they say, oh, so you mean like being okay with it, being content with it. I had this problem on the plane with coming back from British Columbia. I was trying to explain to this guy who'd done a Vipassana course in the Goenka tradition. I was trying to explain to him the practice, and he kept saying, so it means being content, or what was he saying? Accepting. Now he used the word accepting, and I said, well, it's not quite accepting, because the word accepting has problematic connotations. Accepting could mean that you're okay with it. You think this is perfectly valid behavior, right? If you're discontent, that's bad. It's not good. And so in a sense, you should throw it away. You should abandon it. And the words that they often use are abandoning, discarding. Bahana means to abandon or to discard. Yeah, there's Ali's YouTube channel, and it doesn't linkify. I think if you put HTTP in front of it, it would linkify. Anyway. And you can see who Ali is. He's also, Ali, you have to, he's involved with the skeptics. So a lot of you people who, if you like the sort of things I say, you love what he said. He did this awesome video on how in order to be, or was that the video? He's done a TED talk. Ali's kind of famous. He did a TED talk, TEDx, I think. But so he's involved with the skeptics, and he said something that will always stick with me. He said, in order to be a skeptic, you have to meditate. You can't truly be a skeptic if you're not meditating. The rationale being, to be a skeptic, you have to, and I hope I'm getting this, I hope I'm not misrepresenting him, but it's brilliant. In order to be a skeptic, you have to see things clearly, right? To be a skeptic, you have to be truly unbiased. That's the idea of the skeptic, is to reserve judgment, to not prejudge until. So the skeptic means having your judgment rely perfectly on science. In other words, on observation, empirical evidence, true evidence, whatever that is. If you haven't meditated, you can't do that. An ordinary person is full of biases. What this means is your mind has to be perfect. In order to be a true skeptic, your mind has to be perfectly clear. The only way, and we don't have that ability. Where can you get this ability? How can you possibly just assume this stance? You can't. You are full of conflicting desires and biases and so on, which is why we rely so much upon double-blind tests and third-person peer review, that kind of thing, because we don't trust ourselves, and rightly so, because we're not trustworthy. But we tend to overlook the fact that it's possible to become trustworthy. It's possible to get to the state where you should be able to trust your own observations, and that's through the practice of meditation. So, because skeptics are often very much, well, they're usually atheists, which is cool because we're atheists as well, but they're also skeptical of meditation. They say meditation is good for relaxation. I had a huge argument with some YouTube skeptics, or quote unquote, or atheists, and they were just ridiculing the idea that meditation could possibly be a means for discovery of truth. No, anyway. So, Ali, feel free to, if you did have a link to that video, I would appreciate link to your TED Talk maybe. I'd appreciate it because I know a lot of people here like that sort of thing. That's a reason why they follow me, I think. Did I answer the question fully, or was there more to say? Yeah, so it's not so much about being content. You become unmoved by your discontent, means you don't react to it. But that doesn't quite mean content. It means unmoved by your discontent. Because when you're truly unmoved by it, and maybe unmoved is not even fair, because unmoved can be through ignorance. But when you're objective, you have to say it. You have to be very careful of your language and stick to the orthodox language, otherwise you run into problems. When you say you're content with something, immediately you run the risk of having people understand that they should, it's okay. You know, I'm angry and that's fine. I'm an angry person. I just get angry. It's better than feeling guilty about your anger, because the guilt is a whole other layer. But it's, on the other hand, dangerous because, no, it could be even worse than feeling guilty, because it can lead you to be angry full out. You think, it's fine, you know, this is who I am, gonna go all out. If you don't like the fact that you're angry, then at least you have the check that is going to keep you from going full out. You know, you want to yell at someone. If you're content with your anger, then you're going to go full out. If you're discontent with it, well, then the discontent on top of discontent is problematic, but at least it's going to prevent you from going full out. So discontent is dangerous. The words content and discontent, better not to, but it's not quite the right terminology in my mind. But it's slippery. It's hard to say exactly what is meant. Thank you for the link. Everyone bookmark the link. And right after this, you should all go and watch.
I'm relatively new to Buddhism and was wondering where I should begin in the Buddha's teaching and where to go from there.
So I'm wondering, where is this? I'm wondering, relatively new, where I should begin, right? And where I should go from there. Yeah, it's a good question. I guess I'd recommend meditation. I think you have to be careful to just dive in or pick up an introduction to Buddhism, because who's to say that introduction to Buddhism is the best one, right? There's got to be tons of different introductions, all giving you different ideas. There's one really good introduction, or fairly good introduction, that we usually recommend, called What the Buddha Taught. It's a book. I don't think it's on the internet. You probably have to buy it. But it's a fairly good book. I don't like some of the things he says. I'm not convinced. Like he says, the Buddha said life is suffering, or the first noble truth is that life is suffering. The first noble truth is not that life is suffering. That's not at all. In fact, the one thing that the Buddha says is, the Buddha omits from the list of what is suffering is life. Life is not suffering. Death is suffering. Birth is suffering because it's, painful and stuff, and also traumatic. and etc., etc. Sickness is suffering, but the Buddha never. So, my point here, you have to be careful. Even with a good introduction, you may potentially get the wrong idea. So I wish I had. I can't think off the top of my head a good book that I truly believe is a proper introduction. So, in order to bypass that, figure out for yourself what are the core elements of Buddhism, and then you can expand it. Get a sense of truth for yourself. We take it as a given that Buddhism is about finding the truth, right? So get a sense of the truth, even just a basic sense. Doesn't have to mean you become enlightened, but get a basic sense of the truth for yourself. And to do that, practice meditation. So you want my advice? Take my book, How to Meditate, or a book like it. Mahasi Sayadaw has some great books. He's a monk who passed away about 33 years ago. Take his books on practical vipassana meditation and start practicing. Just look and use this technique to see what's going on, and then start reading the actual teachings of the Buddha. They're all over the internet. Find a good translation. The best translations are by Bhikkhu Bodhi, which again, unfortunately, are not freely available. They are, but they're not legal. So you have to find them, or find someone who can let you borrow or give you, well, hey, maybe there's a link to them somewhere on the internet. But find Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations, or any, there's some other good free online translations as well, and start reading, because you'll find that the practice as a background gives you the ability to decipher the teachings. People who haven't practiced, I think, have a hard time understanding the teachings. It's why you have so many fake Buddha quotes out there, because nobody can really pin down what the Buddha actually said. He wasn't very quotable. His teachings, there's some good quotes, but there's not as many as we would like, right? He's not quotable. He doesn't say something that makes you feel good. He gives you this much and blows your mind, but it's not something you can put on Facebook. It's not something that makes a meme, right? It's not memeable.
Some of the Dhammapadas are kind of memeable.
Some of them, but not as much as other sorts of similar teachings.
Yeah.
I've tried quoting the Dhammapada. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mostly fake Buddha quotes.
Yeah, fake Buddha quotes are much better than real ones in terms of quotability.
But you can tell that they're fake.
Yeah, you can tell that the Buddha would have never said such a thing. It's a feel-good teaching. Right? Yeah. Some of the fake quotes are actually very Buddhist. Some of them. The Buddha never said that, but it does sound Buddhist. That happens. But often they're just imprecise. You can't say that. You can't pin it down to one thing. It's more complicated than that. The truth is not quite so simple.
I'm not sure if this question is for you or for Ali. Ali, is this like Is this like Pyrrhonian skepticism, suspension of judgment?
Yes, I believe. I don't know that his TED talk or these talks are actually about being skeptic. Maybe that's the first one he put. I think the TED talk wasn't specifically about being a true skeptic. So yeah, Ali did a 17-day solitary meditation. Good guy. Good to see it. Nice to see him here. Thanks for showing up.
Okay, we have a follow-up question regarding the members of the Noble Sangha. If we have no evidence of the existence of members of the third gem, Noble Sangha, do we take refuge on faith alone?
Taking refuge in general can be based on faith alone. I mean, how do you take it on faith that the Buddha actually existed? I mean, we have in the text, we have that the Buddha existed. We also have that this Arahant Sangha has existed. So they're both equally taken on faith until you actually practice the teachings and say, whoa, this kind of teaching is not ordinary. people who teach this are special in some way. And so then you get an appreciation for them actually existing. But the Sangha is more appreciation of those levels of attainment, you know. So if you haven't attained them, you have to still take it on faith that such beings exist, or that such states are possible. But you're paying respect to the attainment, really, the level of attainment, not an individual person. What did we learn in our study of the Visuddhimagga? It does touch upon this idea, I think. What is the Sangha? It's about the qualities. When you practice Sangha Nusati, you're practicing mindfulness of the qualities of what makes a person worthy. You know, a lot of it's about being worthy. Ahunayo, pahunayo, dakinayo, anjali karaniyo, worthy of all these things, worthy of gifts, worthy of appreciation, worthy of salutation, worthy of reverence.
I thought if we said life is running, it's describing something life is doing. Life is suffering because that's what life is doing?
No. Life is not suffering. See, one reason why that's an important distinction is because nibbana is called amatta. It's not called death. It's called the undeath. We had this fun conversation or discussion on Stack Exchange about the word amatta, which is often translated as deathless, but that's not what it literally means. It literally means undead. State of being a zombie. No, undead. But the meaning is basically deathless. And there's a Dhammapada quote, a Dhammapada verse that is, I think, probably fairly quotable. Ye pamatta yatha matta. Those who are negligent are as if already dead. Appamada namiyanti. This is the part that I meant to refer to. Appamada namiyanti. Appamatta namiyanti. The people who are unintoxicated, who are not negligent, who are heedful, never die. Namiyanti, never die. Right? So in essence, he's talking about eternal life, which is misleading. It's a misleading term, and it's wrong to think of it as we normally would think of eternal life. But it means no longer being subject to death. So I don't know, maybe that's a red herring. Maybe that's problematic in and of itself. But I do know that we tend to place life as being somewhat special. Now, if you look at it from the point of view of Abhidhamma, then we have what is called the Jivitindriya, which is the faculty of life, and that's physical life, or its existence life. It's life in samsara, life that has arising. Now that life does cease, and so there is that. And that life faculty, I think you'd say, has to be included in the truth of suffering. So technically, the life faculty is a part of the truth of suffering. But on the other hand, the life faculty is a quality. You'd be better off saying it's a quality of rupa. Rupa has a life, or rupa occurs due to, or based on, or being involved with the life faculty. The life faculty is a product of the continuation of rupa, I think, or is it nama? Jivitindriya, I think, is physical. I'm not sure. Pretty sure it's physical. And so we're talking about physical life. But the rupa itself is part of the dukkha satya, because it's impermanent, unsatisfying, uncontrollable. But jivitindriya is only a quality of that rupa. Anyway, Don't do it. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say because it certainly turns people off of Buddhism, and it's misleading. Buddhism isn't about saying that life is suffering. It's about identifying what is causing you suffering. It's identifying what is unsatisfying. You know? You could say existence is made up of entirely of suffering, which doesn't sound much better. But don't say life is suffering. You don't have to. It's not necessary. It's not helpful. Oh wow, what the Buddha taught is online. I think I knew that. I think I downloaded that PDF file once.
Hopefully that's a good PDF file. I read a PDF file, and hopefully it's not that one, where you could tell it was the real book, but then someone had added something to it. It was like this list of suggestions, and you could just tell it was not part of the original book. It was so completely different from stylistically, and it was, one of these kind of modern, take lots of vacations, hug your children. It was just completely out of place. So hopefully that's not it.
But I think meditate first is a better idea, and then start reading. We talked about this last night, right? What are some good books? The Nyanamoli book. Does anyone know the name of that book exactly? Does anyone recognize what I'm talking about? Nyanamoli.
Is that the heart of Buddhist meditation?
The Word of the Buddha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is it. Wow, it's online. See, let's look this over, and if anyone is interested, let's get together and let's do this as a screenplay. No, this isn't it. No, it's not the Word of the Buddha. It's the Life of the Buddha, I think. Nyanamoli, Life of Buddha. Word of the Buddha is something, I think, different. The Life of the Buddha. Yeah. Composed entirely from texts of the Pali Canon. I don't think that's correct. Wait, is this it? They are presented in a framework which serves to connect. No, maybe that's not it either. I think it is. I think that is it. Oh, and it's available free from Pariyatti. So let's see if this is it. So I want to bring this up in case anyone's interested in helping.
I put a link in meditation. Is that it, Bhante?
Yeah, this is it. Which one? Wait. I just found it, so... Yeah, that's probably it. It's also available on Pariyatti for free. So go to Pariyatti, by all means. Pariyatti is this neat store that they follow the Goenka tradition, but we can forgive them for that. I think it's the same thing that you put. But wow, that's online. So okay, look through that. So here's in the introduction, narrator 1. Oh no, this is a description of them. The birth and early years. Narrator 1. Indian history actually begins with the story of the... No, that's not right. Anyway, but this is... Narrator 1 is him. Right? Narrator 1 is a commentator, that's him. Number 2 is... Narrator 2 is usually Buddhaghosa. First voice is Elder Ananda, so this is the actual suttas. Second voice is Ubali from the Vinaya. Third voice is later things in the second council. Yeah, and then there's the chanter who is extra. But so mostly narrator one is him, narrator 2 is the commentator. First voice is getting into the suttas. Thus I heard. On one occasion the Blessed One was living at Savatthi. So we could go through this whole book. It's a long book. And we could each pick a voice. And we could put it together. Find someone to stitch them all together. and make an ebook out of it. No, what do you call it? Not an ebook, audiobook. Anyway, that's something worth reading because it's very canonical. Yanamoli did have some interesting, strange translation choices, but he was brilliant. One of the masters of language. He was a monk in Sri Lanka, but born in Germany, and just a master of just such clarity of language. Anyway, I think that's it then, no?
I think so.
Let's put it. Oh, so do we have news today? What's our news today? There's a new video up, and there's a new, Robin, thank you for putting up the new update for the, you wanted to say something about the project?
Sure. We're just updating the You Caring project because while it was originally intended to take place in January, it's now actually taking place a lot sooner. The lease is signed, and Bhante will be moving into the new monastery within the next week or two. So everything is updated, although I haven't attached your new video. I haven't even seen your new video yet. So I'll watch that and add it to the campaign.
Did you see my link to it?
I did. I just hadn't checked my emails before, so I will do that now.
Manbina says, heartiest congratulations. I'm so happy and excited.
It's good news.
I'll try coming this weekend to see you. Would love to hear all about it. Manbin is a friend from Toronto. She's actually was on the board, or sort of is on the board of directors, but she's just so busy with her own life that she hasn't been involved much. Good to see her this weekend. Yeah, I mean, links are important. We should have maybe a links section, recommended links on the site that have nothing to do with us, but that we recommend. Like definitely the Life of the Buddha by Nyanamoli, Mahasi Sayadaw books. We've got a whole bunch on our website in ebook format. They're not very good ebook. They were made by batch, and I think there's some errors in them and stuff. But there's HTML files for Mahasi Sayadaw that are pretty good. We should have links to that, right? Links to the Mahasi Sayadaw folder on our website.
Oh, okay.
And links to things like this. You know, we should maybe have a where can I get basic information or something like that on Buddhism, Mahasi, this tradition of meditation. I don't know what else.
Are you looking for links to other sources or to your own static collection there?
Well, that's the Mahasi stuff. Is we've got it already, so you don't need to necessarily look elsewhere for it. But like these links that we've just put, the link to Life of the Buddha would be if people are looking. We could have a section on general Buddhism, which we don't have. We don't have any information about that. But what we recommend, Life of the Buddha, I think is worth recommending. And I could add links to it, like the 3 cardinal discourses on access to insight, Way of Mindfulness, which is on access to insight, but that might be under a different section. So links to these on our website, I think, would be quite useful, because good information is out there, but there's also a lot of not so good information. I mean, from our point of view, less good information that we would consider to be potentially misleading. And you'll get recommendations from all sorts of different people. Sirimangalo knowledge base, there you go. We had a wiki at one point. We could do wiki.sirimangalo.org and put up MediaWiki. The problem with MediaWiki, like the Wikipedia software, you can just put it on your website. The problem with it is it is so it attracts bots like nothing else. So spam, you end up with so much spam because they're looking for it all over the world. They're looking for this software. So you can use other types of wiki software that are less susceptible to spam just because they're less popular. But a wiki might be interesting.
One question on what happened to your Sutta study series.
Which one is that? The one where we chanted the suttas first and then studied them?
I'm not sure.
I was thinking about the chanting that we did, and I don't know how interesting it was for others, but it was fun for us because, monks do morning and evening chanting, and I've always felt like, why aren't we actually chanting some really cool stuff? So me and this Samanera in Winnipeg, we just every evening we would just chant a sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, and we went in order. We didn't really get into it, and it was at a time where things were kind of unsettled, so I don't think we were that into it. But it was really great for me to be able to have an excuse to read the Pali.
It'd be nice for our Pali class, but the problem would be if everyone had their mic open at the same time, the
You can't
reverb
chant.
would be
You have to chant it
horrible.
live. Everyone else can chant along, but they chant without microphone.
Yeah.
It's like when we take the precepts. But yeah, I've actually recently been thinking about that, and at our new place, that's probably what I'll do, for chanting. I have to incorporate it into my daily schedule. Here we do chanting, and I don't always take part, but at 7 p.m. they have chanting in the Cambodian tradition. But, again, it's just mainly devotion and asking forgiveness. I like the asking forgiveness part, and I like the devotion part, but it's pretty simple.
They chant the same suttas every
We
night?
stopped before we got to the Satipatthana Sutta. Yeah, okay, we'll pick it up again. I need a co-conspirator. Doing it alone is problematic because you have to take a breath every so often. But yeah, I'm happy to pick that one up. At least I've got one person who's interested. That's a good sign.
I think the chanting would be cool. I chant along with YouTube videos. It's good practice.
You can see what they're like. They're on YouTube. It would be like Eva me sutang ekang samayang bhagava savatiyang viharati jetavane anatapindikassa arame tatra ko bhagava bhikkhu amantesi. Something like that. And then after that, we would study it. We would go through it, and we'd go through the English translation, and we actually put it up on the Google Hangout, right? We're using screen share.
If we did our Pali class on Google Hangout, we could have 10 people chanting at the same time.
You can't do live chanting like that because I don't think there's always a delay. The delay, you don't notice it now, but you'd notice it if you tried to sync it up because you'd constantly be adjusting for each other, and you'd say, I think we tried it once actually. Pretty sure there's no way that could work.
Well, definitely not if people were watching because there's that 30-second delay, but I don't notice a delay in the Hangout.
But you would notice it, like if you and I were to try to chant together. Do you know any chanting? Do you want to try? Let's try Namo Tassa together.
Sure.
Namo Tassa. Yeah, you see?
Well, see, I'm waiting for you.
Yeah, but I had already. I could tell that. Okay, let's try it. You'll see, it's not gonna work. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma. See, we're waiting for each other.
Yeah. I see what you mean. You're waiting for each other.
Because I start waiting for you. If I don't listen to you, it would work, but it wouldn't work because people at home would see us out of sync. We'd think we were in sync, or you'd think we were in sync. I'd hear that we weren't in sync, and the people at home would hear that we weren't in sync.
How do people do this live?
You don't do it live. You do it live,
No,
but everyone mutes their mics.
no, I mean just in, like at a temple in real life.
Well, in real life, it's practically instantaneous. It's the speed of sound is the delay. But here we have at least a half a second, if not a second, delay between the two of us.
Okay.
Sounds like Peter Gabriel. I assume Peter Gabriel is someone who uses a lot of delay in his audio. Uh-oh. We have to talk to Jeff. I hope he's getting these emails as well. Just got an email from the about the IRS. What the heck do we have to do with the IRS? Anyway, something for Jeff to look at, not me. Okay, that's all. On that note, our failed attempt at chanting together. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Bhante. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Robin. Good night.
Good night.